Imagine discovering that words written thousands of years ago might still describe the direction of our world today. More than 2,700 years ago, long before modern nations existed, long before global politics or advanced technology, a man recorded visions that would influence generations across centuries. His name was Isaiah. Isaiah lived during a time when powerful empires dominated the ancient world, when entire civilizations could rise and collapse within a single generation. Yet his writings were not limited to the political events of his own time. They spoke about the moral condition of societies, the struggles between nations, and the possibility of a future transformation that would reshape human history. For thousands of years, historians, theologians, and scholars have studied Isaiah's words, attempting to understand their meaning and historical context. But what makes his message so remarkable is that many of the themes he described continue to appear throughout history. To understand why Isaiah's writings remain so influential, we must first return to the world in which he lived. Isaiah lived during the 8th century before Christ, a period marked by dramatic political changes across the ancient Near East. The region was dominated by powerful empires competing for control of trade routes, territory, and influence. Among them, the Assyrian Empire stood out as one of the most formidable military forces of the ancient world. Assyria expanded rapidly, conquering cities and kingdoms across the region. Smaller nations, including the Kingdom of Judah, lived under the constant shadow of these expanding powers. Military alliances shifted quickly, and political uncertainty shaped everyday life. But external threats were not the only challenge facing Judah. Within the nation itself, deeper problems were beginning to emerge. Social divisions were becoming more pronounced. Economic inequality was increasing. And political leaders often pursued power and wealth at the expense of justice and moral responsibility. It was in this atmosphere of instability and uncertainty that Isaiah began delivering his messages. According to the biblical record, Isaiah did not merely comment on the political situation of his time. He presented a broader perspective on the condition of human societies. One of the most powerful themes in Isaiah's writings is the moral direction of civilizations. In one of his most well-known warnings, Isaiah speaks of a time when people would call evil good and good evil. This statement reflects a moment of moral confusion, when societies begin to lose their ability to distinguish between what sustains them and what ultimately destroys them. For Isaiah, this moral confusion was not simply an abstract concept. He observed its effects in his own society. Leaders neglected justice. The vulnerable were often ignored. And the pursuit of wealth and influence began to overshadow the principles that once guided the community. Isaiah believed that when a society abandons justice, its foundations gradually weaken. Trust begins to disappear. Institutions lose credibility, and conflicts become more frequent. These patterns, he believed, were not limited to one generation. They could repeat across centuries. History itself seemed to demonstrate this cycle. Empires rise with strength and ambition. They expand their territories and influence. Yet over time, internal corruption, political instability, or external pressures lead to their decline. The ancient world witnessed the rise and fall of many powerful civilizations. Assyria would eventually collapse. Babylon would rise and later fall. Persia, Greece, and Rome would each dominate vast regions before facing their own transformations. This cycle of power and decline became one of the defining patterns of human history. Yet Isaiah's message was not simply about warning or judgment. Alongside his descriptions of instability and conflict, he also presented a powerful vision of restoration. One of the most famous passages in Isaiah's writings appears in chapter 11. In poetic language, he describes a world transformed. In this vision, the wolf lives peacefully with the lamb. Predators and prey share the same landscape. Children play safely without fear. This imagery symbolizes a world in which violence and conflict no longer dominate human existence. For Isaiah, this transformation would not come through military conquest alone, nor would it arise from political systems or economic power. Instead, he spoke about the arrival of a ruler characterized by wisdom, justice, and compassion. This leader would govern not through fear, but through fairness and understanding. Within the Christian tradition, many readers interpret this figure as the Messiah, a promised leader who would bring lasting peace and restore harmony among nations. But even beyond specific religious interpretations, Isaiah's vision presents a broader reflection on the human desire for justice and stability. Throughout history, societies have searched for leaders capable of guiding nations toward peace rather than conflict. Isaiah's message suggests that true restoration requires more than political reform. It requires a transformation of values. Justice must replace corruption. Wisdom must guide power. And compassion must shape leadership. Isaiah also described an even more profound transformation. In several passages, he speaks of a new heaven and a new earth. These expressions symbolize a renewal of creation itself, a world where suffering, injustice, and violence would no longer define human life. In this vision, the struggles that have shaped human history give way to harmony and restoration. While interpretations of these passages vary, the central message remains clear. Isaiah believed that the future of humanity was not destined to remain trapped in cycles of conflict. Instead, he envisioned a future where restoration becomes possible. The writings of Isaiah have survived for nearly 3 millennia. They have been preserved, translated, and studied by countless generations. Some read them as historical documents that reveal the worldview of the ancient Near East. Others see them as spiritual teachings about justice, responsibility, and hope. But regardless of interpretation, the themes Isaiah explored continue to resonate in the modern world. Questions about justice, leadership, and the moral direction of societies remain as relevant today as they were in the ancient world. Human civilizations continue to face many of the same challenges Isaiah described. How should power be used? What happens when societies abandon justice? And what kind of future becomes possible when wisdom guides leadership? These questions remain central to the human story. Perhaps this is why Isaiah's voice continues to be heard across centuries, not only as a figure from the ancient past, but as a reminder that the choices societies make today can shape the future of generations to come. In a world that continues to experience cycles of conflict, transformation, and renewal, the message of Isaiah remains a powerful invitation to reflect on the direction of humanity. His words encourage each generation to consider the values that sustain civilization: justice, wisdom, compassion, and the enduring hope that even in times of uncertainty, restoration remains possible.